morning, YouTube. It's 4:43 in the morning, and I am staring down, setting my alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning because I have somewhere to be today that I'm kind of excited about, and I can't get back to sleep for that last little bit. So, you guys get a Ramble video. Today, I think I'm going to talk about this idea that I've had churning around in my head since the last time I made a ramble, and that is why I'm not super enthused about your new atheist group. And part of it has to do with my history with my local groups, but part of it is actually on a national scale. In summary, I'll just say right now, if you want the too long didn't listen, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, and too many groups sprouting up when there are perfectly good groups that they could have put their effort into, but they decided that they wanted their own because they couldn't climb up the ladder, so to speak, to get to the position of authority that they wanted, and the position that would give them a good bullet point on their resume, and the position that allows all the decision making, instead of actually putting effort into an existing group or fixing a group that's like dying, that's old. People have gone off and spawned their new groups. And sometimes these new groups are spawned in the face of problems in an old existing group, much the way that denominations are created within churches. When they disagree on dogma. So, what I'm about to say here, longtime viewers of my YouTube channel will be familiar with. A lot of it, some people might have to go digging through my channel over years in order to see everything that I'm saying and see this pattern. But I'm going to start out about 4 years ago. I was living in Louisiana, and I went on a long road trip, and I did these road surveys, and I visited all these YouTubers all over the United States. This isn't the previous road survey I did was on a different channel, and the last road survey I did on a different road trip was not the one I'm talking about. This was in November and December of 2010. Okay? And at the end of that, I ended up moving to Colorado Springs. And in doing so, I lost all of my local contacts and friends, so I had to become part of the local scene in order to get myself reconnected to anything local. And at the same time, I had been really interested in the atheist movement, as it were. I'm not one of those people who doesn't believe it exists. I believe it does exist, but I'm using the term broadly because there are many people who see the words atheist, non-believer, secular, freethinker, humanist as synonymous, not seeing the differences in dogma or reasons for being, much the way that you can say the term Christian and mean all of the different denominations. So I guess the non-belief movement would be the broader term that might catch everything, the secular movement. But the best group that was around when I decided to connect locally in Colorado Springs was the Freethinkers of Colorado Springs. And they were a 20-year-old organization. At that time, like 18, but I was there for the 20th anniversary. And the person running things was not the president, as far as I could see. I was going to the meetings and filming them and putting them all on YouTube. And for the ones that I actually included the introduction, you will see that during that time, it was not the president. And I'll use real names here because, screw doc dropping courtesies, because you guys can find the videos on my channel anyway and fill in if I were to use fake names. So Harvey was the secretary treasurer for a long time, and he was introducing all the speakers, and the reason why is because the president, who at that time was Rich Breidenbach, he was not present at any of the meetings because he had a disagreement with the day that they were being held on, and he disagreed with the direction of the group. Strangely enough, the president, who could have steered the group, he did have a interview on TV where he was captioned as the president of the Freethinkers during that time. It was during the whole preaching from the pulpit about politics thing. It was during the elections in 2012. In the build up to the elections, there were preachers who were saying, "Vote for Mitt Romney," and they were sending the tapes to the IRS to try to force a lawsuit against themselves because they wanted standing in order to have a lawsuit. And he was interviewed by local news organizations as the president, but that was the only thing I saw him do in the first year that I was in the Freethinkers, that he was still the president, right? So it was strange to me that I hadn't seen him at any of the meetings. Apparently he had something better to do. But what I didn't see was a lot of the, I guess, infighting and the dynamics of things. It was affecting me as a regular member. And I just like to film. I just like to put things on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is a mixed bag. I don't have the same formula as other people. I like to film activism. I like to film meetings. And they have a theme to them. But I don't follow a formula that gets me a lot of subscribers here on YouTube. I'm not radio-friendly edits with 3-minute videos. I'm not jump cutting a lot. And the subscribers I have appreciate that. But the large majority of people would be really bored by this point in the video. That's why I gave the too long, didn't listen. The summary of basically there's too many chiefs, not enough Indians. That's it. Too long, didn't listen. Basically, when Rich finally left the Freethinkers, the president of the Freethinkers left, he created his own group. And when he did so, he took things from the existing group, and that created this huge local controversy, I guess, within our community, because the meetup group that was labeled Freethinker was changed into the atheist community of Colorado Springs. And basically, they left behind a 20-year-old organization to start another one. And the climate in the local community and the national community had changed such that people saw the word freethinker as being pussy. Like, if you're going to call yourself an atheist, go out and call yourself an atheist. So when they used the term atheist in their name, they were a little bit more attractive because people had been used to the brashness of the Four Horsemen and every other person on the internet that they had seen that had spoken out. That's the culture that we're in now. 20 years ago, you kind of wanted to sugarcoat the word atheist with another term in order to have a little bit more standing in the community, if that's what you wanted to do with your group, was be a part of the community but have functions for non-believers. So they not only got away with stealing the meetup group and renaming it, they actually were thriving for a little while. But then they had their own little divisions where Rich went off and made secular hikers, because all he wanted to do with non-believers was hike with them. So he's still the president of something somewhere on Meetup. But the group, the atheist community of Colorado Springs, is now split again. And now they have Pikes Peak Atheists. And they're, during the same time, there were the Pikes Peak Secular Society, or Pikes Peak Skeptic Society, which I'm a member of, but more part of a little insular group than the organizing group right now, because I just have some friends and we're close knit, but that group has undergone leadership changes because the leader, who wasn't, I guess, as close knit with the members as the members were to each other, just decided to give the group to somebody who just happened into the city. And I don't know how that's going to work out for their group, but I do like that it was an old group that seemed to be, needing some fresh blood, and somebody decided to step up and take an old group and try to revitalize it rather than making their own group. But I do have this feeling like in Colorado Springs there's this officer mentality. Now, Colorado Springs is surrounded by 5 military bases, and some of the people who join secular or atheist, non-belief, freethinker groups, they are military. And they tend to think that if you chop off the head of a group and then instate yourself in, just like an officer would get given a command when he moves from one base to another. He gets given, here's this troop of soldiers, at whatever rank that you're at, you get this many soldiers, and we've already prepackaged them, and here they go for you. And then those soldiers actually feel an allegiance to that officer. That's my colonel, that's my captain. And they don't question things, they just follow. Well, that's not true with an organization where they don't feel any connection whatsoever to you, and they're not bound by any kind of authority that you have. So it's weird that the officers and military members that join the groups, they feel like they should be immediately recognized for what they can bring to the group and be given the presidency. So part of my experience and the reason why I'm not enthused with new groups is on that local level, a very localized thing. A mindset being injected into that local scene where it just didn't fit with people who were no longer in the military and who had friends within the groups and are wondering, hey, who's this guy? You know? And after 4 years of seeing it and seeing how divisive it has been to the groups, that all pretty much spawned from one group that had a long history, it's kind of made me feel like whatever efforts I put into a group, just the next day somebody can take those efforts I put in growing a group and then divide the group in half and say, hey, let's split off and do this thing because I want to pay $60 and make my own meetup group. And there's my alarm. So I'm really not happy with that feeling that all of my organizational efforts can be in vain because somebody can come along and be divisive. And this is to the point of when I got onto the board of the Freethinkers of Colorado Springs after a couple years of being a member. I had to sit there and listen to other board members who actually asked the question, do we need to exist? In the face of all these other groups that are sprouting up, we're at a disadvantage because we have the pussy name that isn't popular, it's not catchy, it's not edgy, and we just have had a hard time getting people with a lot of energy who want to be part of the movement. We've had a hard time bringing them in and making them board members and making them, or I guess, corralling everyone together, herding the cats. It's just seeing how it really sucked the life out of those board members to the point where they were asking if there was even a reason why the group should exist, which is something that a board member should never say. Like, if you are on the board of an organization, the last thing that you should ever be thinking about is, should we kill the organization? Because of this phenomenon of people wanting to be the chief and not the Indian, and never wanting to join the group because they don't feel like even talking to you to see if there's an opening on the board, which there is. There through this whole time there was always an opening on the board that somebody could just say, hey, I want to do it, and poof, they'd be board member. But that was the structure of the Freethinkers. They actually were they are a non-profit. They 501c3 and all that, so they have to have a board. But other groups, they pretty much are run by whoever paid the meetup dues. And that's the bar to entry. If you want to start your own group, and suck some members who might have been part of an existing larger group, and get your start. All you need to do is pay $60 to meetup.com. And poof. And why? Why would anyone spend the time with an existing organization when they can just shoot right to the top? Why? People who have that itch to be a leader, many times they are narcissists who don't feel like they need to pay dues by meeting people even and talking with people. So, yeah, I'm not enthused about new groups when they spring up. And this is a phenomenon that I've even seen in local, what I'll just term nerd groups, like cosplay and steampunk and science loving, and you can see the same thing with them, that they keep on getting split and split and split because I have a feeling that people in our culture today sense that if you don't start out as the president, you'll never make it to the presidency of a larger group. Like, things are set in stone and they never change. Which is not the case with the Freethinkers. Every officer gets voted on every 2 years. That's how I became the vice president of the Freethinkers. Is, an election came up. But outside of this large local phenomenon that I've seen, there's also problems that I've seen in organizations that are on a national level and seem to be trying to subvert the popularity and effectiveness of other organizations. And as my giant example, I'm going to use the Secular Coalition for America and their president, Edwina Rogers, who, rather than starting working for other organizations, she just created this group and instilled herself as president. But since then, has gone on to get onto the board of the Richard Dawkins Foundation and been cancerous from within that. In fact, I know many of the workers that she laid off here in Colorado Springs in order to market out the inventory of the Richard Dawkins Foundation's website, basically to streamline the whole thing, because it doesn't matter to her that letters get answered. When people are saying, "Oh, Mr. Dawkins, you've changed my life forever. I really love your organization," all that. Those people don't need an answer to their question. They just need their order filled and a receipt put in the box. Edwina Rogers, I've had so many bad things told to me about her, and the latest one you can find on a blog post by the Friendly Atheist, where he's talking about the Secular Coalition for America, and one of the former presidents of his or of her organization, they posted on this blog post, and it's really revealing as to what happens with this group. Because the Secular Coalition for America, when I saw their presentation for the newly formed Secular Coalition of Colorado, where each of the 50 states was going to get a president, for the local chapter, and our president here was at that time Ben Donahue. Basically, if you were to listen in to one of their phone conversations where you could call in once a month and see what had been done, the Secular Coalition for America would take credit for anything in legislature that had failed that was going to be against non-believers, and they would list upcoming legislature. Now, how hard is it to compile that list and look like you're doing something? You can do it from, for all 50 states, you can do it from one couch. It's very easy to do. In fact, other websites already do that, so you can just take credit for that hard work. But what I noticed right away was the way that they wanted phone lists and they wanted email trees and repeaters. They wanted all that collected by their local groups. And the reason why is because they didn't like having to join other groups like the Coalition of Reason or anything like that. They just wanted their email lists. They didn't want to be a part of them. They wanted to take from them. And there's a reason why groups last for 20, 30, 40 years. There's a reason why activist groups last that long. It's because they persevere through all of the backstabbing and the politics and all that. And there is something to be said for finding a great group that actually performs its purpose rather than has a few meetings where they decide what the direction is going to be before someone decides, you know what, I don't like this direction, let's start another group. If you are looking to join a group, I'd say, does the group have a clear mission? And are they performing it, or are they just talking about it? I've just seen so much of what could have been effort and actually doing things torn apart by people just saying, you know what, maybe if we did it this other way, and then splitting up groups. And now the largest meeting the Freethinkers have had in the past couple of years was getting Dawkins to speak at Colorado College, which had about 800 people in attendance, and probably 200 of them were members of any standing of the Freethinkers. Since then, it's been as little as 13 show up to a meeting with a speaker, and I'd say it doesn't look good. Whereas they used to be able to command 300 people at a meeting, it's dwindled way, way down. And I don't see how to fix it. And I have spent board meeting after board meeting listening to it being a problem and not knowing how to fix it. The reason being, you invite people into the movement through one avenue, and then they see all of these other offerings, and people will hold themselves as if they have this awesome organization when all they really have is a meetup group and an idea. They don't have any of the fellowship or connections that some of the older groups have, and they don't really want them. They want people to just show up and follow their instructions and their orders, and they want themselves to be the chief. But when those people do show up, they're all chiefs too, and they all, have different ideas about the vision and where things should go. So no, I'm not enthused about new groups. I've seen a lot of bad come from new groups sprouting up instead of people putting their efforts into an existing organization that does generally what they like to see done. And if you don't have a tolerance for things being exactly right in the exact way that you like to see things done, then, you might be part of the problem. You might be one of those chiefs. I, for one, feel like an Indian through and through now. I feel like I don't want any leadership position. I don't want anything like that. I just want to show up and do what needs to get done. And part of that for me is just showing up to meetings of whatever. Anything that shows up on meetup.com, anything that shows up in my Facebook and they get invited to, and just putting it up on YouTube and supporting them in that way. And I get a lot of thank yous for that. But as far as wanting to be any part of the decision making, no. Unless the decision is how do we get this done, and the larger direction's already been decided, and I have something to offer, I really don't care to be part of the bickering and part of the divisiveness, because I see where it gets us. It gets us less and less people showing up. It gets us less and less involvement. And I'd rather do than dream. So I guess you'll see a different thing here on my channel in the next coming months, because I myself have had a lot of life changes, and I'm moving cities myself. So in the new city that I'm going to be in, I'm not going to take the same approach of being a part of the movement. I feel like I'm just going to do what I know works. I'm really burned out on spending 2 or 3 board meetings planning an event, each of those meetings being 2 to 3 hours, and then spending 10 hours in a day on the day of the event, making sure that it goes well, on top of all of the little hours here and there of preparing for an event, and then spending 2 or 3 hours during the event, and all for 13 people to show up, when I can reach more people for the movement, as it were, whatever you want to call it, and do it with 1 hour of effort. It's about the economy of my time, and it's about what is effective and what's not really divisive anyway. I'm just going to show up, film, and put it out there for you guys on YouTube. That's it. Because it's the most effective thing that I can do. And it brings me joy. And I'm trimming the fat. So those of you who are playing World of Warcraft and listening to my voice, find something else to listen to, maybe a podcast.